Okay, we're going to practice some one-digit divisors in this first problem. So you're dividing by one number outside, some numbers inside. So you've done this before. I find a lot of people have trouble with division. So I want to try to go over it slowly and give you some tips maybe that'll help you. So the first thing I suggest is to put a line underneath the first one, which in this case is a 6, and say to yourself, will 7 go into 6? Well, no, it won't, because 7 is higher than 6. So a lot of people will skip this step, and I do mostly, but technically you put a 0 there, okay? So your first thing you're doing is dividing. Divide. Now, I want to share something with you also. This D could stand for dad, okay? Because we're going to have a family here in a minute. And so then the next thing you do, some of you put an X here. I usually haven't, I don't do that, but I think it's a good idea to remind you that 0 times this number here. It's outside the box. So 0 times 7 would be, first of all, I want to say the second thing you do is multiply. And M could stand for mother, or mom, whatever. So then 0 times 7 is the 0 here, and we're ready for the next thing, which is subtraction. So then you subtract, which could be sister. So you got dad, mom, and sister. Divide, multiply, and subtract. So when we subtract that, 0 from 6, you get 6. And then you bring down this number here, because 7 won't go into 6, so you bring this 4 down like that. And that bring down is for brother. So you have the family, dad, mom, sister, brother, for divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down. Okay, now you start the process over. You start dividing again. 7 will go into 64 9 times. And the way you kind of do that, some of you have trouble with your multiplication tables, I've noticed. And you can do a couple of things. Sometimes instead of saying 7 divided into 64, I find most of you find that harder a little bit than saying this. 7 times what equals 64 or a little below. So you might just at the side kind of start writing 3 times 5 maybe, and you see maybe that's easier for you to remember, that's 35. Well, that's not too close to 64 yet, so you know it's got to be more than that. So 7 times 7 maybe, and you just kind of, guess and try and experiment. 7 times 7 is 49, so we're getting closer. 7 times 8 would be 56, and then 7 times 9 would be 63. So then you know that 9, it'll go 9 times. Now, another way to do it, though, before I continue on, is sometimes if you just start adding 7 up, 7 a number of times, 7 times 4, maybe you remember that's 21. So another 3 7s would be another 21. And if you just kind of keep adding, then you can get closer like that. So some people find that to help them. So let's continue back. So we found out that 7 times 9 that go, now let me mention something here. One of your common mistakes on some people when they were dividing would be to put that 9, if they figure that out, right over this first 6. And that's not correct. It goes over this 64. Now the reason I initially drew this line under the 6, starting out, you find that doesn't go, and it goes 0 times. Then you go to draw another line under the 64. So that would tell you that you're going to be, if you skip that if you make a shortcut and skip the 0, 7 times 9 would be the 63. So as you learn how to do it, it's okay to skip that and not have to go through that little bit extra work. But if you don't understand it, it's best if you learn this first. All right, so now 9 times 3 is 63. We subtract 3 from 4 to get a 1. We bring down as a 1. Now 7 into 11 goes 1 time. 1 times 7 is 7. And then we subtract and we get 4. Now, up until this grade, and that's the way we'll do it for a little while, you have a remainder of 4. Remainder of 4. Now, I've shown you how to also, which we'll do more of as we progress through the year, how to, instead of having a remainder, have a fraction, and then I'm going to show you how to have a decimal. So just very briefly, instead of writing a remainder of 4, all right, what you would do is a fraction would put this 4, this remainder, up there and make a fraction. The 4 would go over these 7. And so that would be the answer if I asked for a fraction. Okay. Now, just very briefly too, if I wanted to be a decimal that we'll be learning and getting into more and more, put your decimals here and here. Always, as you write the decimal here, always write it right above so you don't mess up on the decimals later. Okay. So what you do, if I wanted to turn it into a decimal, would add a 0 right here and bring it down. So now when you divide 7 into 40, you get 5. Okay. So you'd write that 5 here. 5 times 7 is 35. Subtract, get a 5. Okay, and usually you can keep, sometimes it comes out exactly right that you can end right there, but in this case, 7 won't go into 5, so we add another 0 and bring it down. Okay, and so 7 going to 57 times, 7 times 7 is 49. So you see this is going to keep on and not being exact, so usually what you say is, okay, round it off to the nearest 10th, perhaps. And so in this case, since it's 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, you have to raise this number 1. So actual, as a decimal answer, it would be 91.6. We raised, since this was a higher number than 5, we raised it just one number, 5 to 6. Now, if that had been a 4 there, or 3, or 0, or whatever, then the answer, you would not change that number. It would just be like that. Okay, hope that helps. Call me if you need help.